Welcome to Golden Vital Voices. Today we have a talented artist whose work and story inspire. She shares her journey, creative insights, and lessons learned from a life dedicated to art. So let's dive right in. Would you like to introduce yourself to everybody, Susanna?
Hello, I'm Susanna Coffey. I'm a painter. We're in my Connecticut studio today on this windy autumn day.
Now, Susanna, can you share how you first discovered your passions for art?
It started a long time ago when I was 4 years old. I remember going to the garage where my father worked, and some of the mechanics asked him to ask me what I wanted to be when I grew up. And my answer to him and them was I wanted to be either a master mechanic or an artist. How I knew what an artist was at 4 years old, no idea, but that's the family story. And that was my first. I've always wanted to be an artist. I've never wanted to be anything else.
Well, while you're creating your art or um, trying to think of a new piece, maybe what inspires you when you're thinking about starting something new? Or, how maybe even how did your art like evolve over the years?
I as The artist that I am today is pretty much the artist I was when I first went to undergraduate school at the University of Connecticut in the mid 70s. I had always wanted to be an artist, but up until that point, I had done a lot of other things. I did not have a typical go to high school, go to art school or college, and then go on to graduate school. I did other things. At the age of 26, I decided to settle down and go to college, take my SATs, which I had not done. So I went to the University of Connecticut at Storrs, which seemed like a doable program. And it was doable because I'd already been at that school working as a figure model for the classes. And once I could see what a classroom studio was like, I thought, oh, I can do this. And so I enrolled. And
You were actually on the other side of
I
the
was,
art.
yes, I was on the other side of the easel for a few years in different universities.
So there's some paintings out there of you somewhere.
Maybe, maybe, and
That's really cool.
I was in school in the 70s, and during the 1970s, it was sort of the second death of painting. So in school, painting was not something that was very popular or people taught. It was deemed sort of old fashioned and not very relevant. But I really wanted to become a painter then, as I do now, because I felt that the history was incomplete and that there are many voices that were not included in the trajectory of this wonderful medium that is thousands of years old. So it seemed peculiar that the minute women and people of color were entering the art world, that all of a sudden painting was going to be dead. Um, and so I knew I wanted to be a painter, and I wanted to learn as much as I could about painting, both its history and its practice. So that was very unpopular. I was, and above that, I wanted to be a figurative painter, and that is, I wanted to paint images that could be named, images that were familiar, and I wanted to paint women and figures that did not fit into the usual stereotypes that gender promotes, gendering promotes. So, and that's still what I do. And I wanted to paint things that I am seeing that within the history of art might be less seen or less familiar. So on one hand, I wanted to make work that was very accessible, and on the other hand, I wanted to try to fill in art history, one could say.
Okay.
So if I'm doing landscape painting, which I love to do, I only paint landscape at night.
Now, when you're painting at night, are there some of your favorite types of places that you like to go?
Well, places that don't have that much light,
Okay.
where it's very dark, water. Some of these paintings over there are of the Mystic River. So I went to sit by the Mystic River at night. This one is down here by the lake, here at Gardner's Lake. Wherever I go, when I was teaching in Prague, I'd go to paint in Letna Park or on the famous bridge, or I don't know, wherever I am in the world, I like to paint the night. My primary focus is on the human figure and particularly the self portrait. And so the night paintings happened as sort of a side project, which I became really focused on this last couple of years. But all through for the last, I don't know, since the 80s, I've been working on a series of a night of self portraits. And so I wanted to focus on one person. It wasn't so important that it was me, but I'm present. And so, thinking Giacometti's an artist I've always loved, and he painted his brother for many, many years over and over again. And that was very inspiring to me, how one can see the same image, look at the same person over and over, and really try to pay attention to the way that one person has so many aspects. It's a very simple idea, but I think it is an idea, particularly when it involves women and the images of women or gendered images. There's certain stereotypes, and I really am interested, and I find it compelling and fun to sort of try to work around or against those stereotypes.
So, what advice might you give for those who are thinking about learning art and have never done it, or they're trying to rediscover their art, and they're apprehensive, or they think, oh, I waited too long?
Oh, get over it.
Yeah.
I would say just get over it. Someone I have been teaching for many years, or I have just stopped teaching. I've taught for almost 50 years in various capacities. Find your way to the nearest museum and look at a real object, not on your phone, unless you have no access to a local museum or gallery. Galleries or art galleries are great places to go because they're free, and sometimes you see things that are made by people or people in your community, and that's wonderful. You have to have a sense that this practice of making pictures is something that people have been doing since the beginning of time. And there's just no good reason to say you can't do it. It's really the fear, and get over it. It you have a right. Human beings are expressive creatures, and every human being has a right to express themselves in this way. Get some good art materials. Buy some beautiful, like Sennelier oil crayons, very expensive but really luscious, or beautiful pencils, watercolors. Go to a real art supply store. Don't do it online. If you can get to a real art supply store and look around and just buy a few things that you can afford that speak to you, colors that you love, doesn't matter. It will stimulate your appetite, just as going to the farmer's market will for those of us that like to cook. You like this red and you like that blue, and you're going to take them home and find a place in your home that you can spread everything out and make a mess and get some good paper, paper that can be used with watercolor or dry materials. So don't get cheap paper. Get some cheap paper just to draw on, but have some good, start with better materials than you think you'll need. And and that's a place to start. Just put them out in front of you. Your crayons, your watercolors, your pencils, as much as you can afford, and gather together. Have a few good art books, really good monographs with big pictures, rather than going online, because looking at images online is not that useful.
Okay.
What you're looking at there is colored light. And when you're looking at a book, you're looking at colored ink. Ink is like paint. Go to your library, find some art books you like, put them on your table with your materials, and just look at them, and get a feeling for it. Look at art images that you like, and think about your life, and color shapes that you like, and just start.
Right.
It doesn't bear to think about doing it well.
Okay.
That, unlike cooking, is very important. It doesn't have to taste good. And because we don't know what good is in the present anyway. We know what good is in the past. Good art, and that which is deemed good art, is only about what has been done already. Okay. It's not about what is being done now. So you've just gotten your toes wet. You've gotten your fingers wet. And then, if you can, take a drawing class at a good place. You want to make sure you look at the work that your teacher does.
Okay.
So before you enroll in a class, make sure the feeling is right, that it feels encouraging, that it feels dynamic. And your teacher should be someone who also makes art. So you want to do a little research about who your teacher is.
And I do know that a lot of people tend to teach remotely now, which means that you're not always one-on-one and you don't get to interact with other people in the classroom. So, of course, I know that you are a big promoter of doing things in person, having conversations, seeing something tangible, holding it in your hand. And I know that that's not always possible, but that's the first suggestion, and look in your community for it.
Very much so. And there may be, for instance, maybe you're not going to draw and paint. Maybe there's a ceramics group in your community. Join a ceramics group. And just any way that you can interact with other people who are trying to express themselves, and there's someone in that group with experience, and that's very important, because as you age, as I am aging, one of the best things about my life is that I have friends of all different ages, and this you'll find in a class. It will be people of different backgrounds, and all of this is very stimulating, for stimulate your creativity. Don't doubt yourself. We all have the right and the ability to create.
And like you shared your story of how this began for you, you weren't sure where you were going with it. You knew that you enjoyed art. You had started to focus on painting, but you said, I'm not sure what the purpose, but I know I'm going to enjoy it, so let me just go. And that's, I think, a good point that you've made today for people who are thinking about some type of creative outlet.
Sometimes focus is maybe not always pleasurable, but it's very engaging. And I think engagement, I mean, it will, there are people for whom it's pleasurable, and I wish that for you, but it's not for me. I do not have a happy brush, but I have an active and passionate brush. I'm very passionate about what I do. Sometimes it just seems like horrible. I think I'm a terrible artist, but I keep going back. I keep trying to be someone that's always working with color, always working with shape, always trying to see things, always asking questions of myself and of the world. So that kind of engagement, if you don't find if you're the kind of person that thrives on obsession, then that's good enough too. And it is we're all different, and engaging as we get older is the best thing, the best the best that can be achieved, because there is an endless train of ideas and images and sounds and shapes and colors that surround us at every moment, and it's all coming in at you. You know that your vision is your most sensitive organ. Your eyes are your most sensitive organ, and they're always taking in much more than we can account for. So, don't doubt that you can. And that would be my advice.
Like, I know you've talked about how a connection between the brain and speaking, and then color and sound and music can stimulate, for those who might be having some trouble with cognitive issues.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Thank you for bringing that up. And also a good thing to do is to play some music, or while you're sitting with your materials. It's really very stimulating, and it can kind of loosen your feelings, because once your heart is open a little bit, music is very good about that. It will open our hearts, like it or not.
Maybe some music that brings up some memories, maybe some new music that we haven't heard before.
Yep.
You just made me think how, for those who may be caretaking for other people who might be homebound, maybe they're suffering from some signs of dementia, to be able to bring music into their life, and then eventually have them trying to do something creative right at home with their caretaker or family member.
Oh, that's great. That is absolutely, because as we know now, music is very important for people whose cognitive facilities are declining, or becoming less acute. I'm also an amateur dancer, and
I wouldn't say amateur, but okay.
and I'm very lucky at an early age to have been introduced to the dances and music of the African diaspora. And in that tradition, the dances are very complicated and involve rhythms. And rhythms traditionally have a lot to do with very specific emotional or states. And the dances are traditional, like ballet. Learning the steps in relationship to rhythm is something that I'm so grateful for. This something that I continue to do to this day. And I recommend dancing around your studio, around your house. There's nothing that you can do that is more stimulating for your autonomic nervous system than dancing to rhythmic music. Doesn't matter what time, what period the music is from, but it's is proven, and I will cite the Dana Foundation website for information about this, for caregivers in particular, but also people who feel that their speech and or motor control seems to be in decline, or not working as you would like. That the part of your brain where that generates our ability to speak, our ability to move. It's the same area in your brain, and that control these abilities. And it is now understood that if you can dance, it can that activity can open up or stimulate pathways to that part of your brain back here that controls speech and movement, and it will be healing and improve your abilities. So go dance.
Yeah, even if you have to do it from a chair. I know when my father was showing signs of dementia, the music would always get him smiling. And when he started to not speak as much or have trouble speaking, when there was music, he'd smile more and then move more, interact, and then have some words to say.
It is so true, and I can't tell you how important it is and how wonderful it is. So drop all of your inhibitions, dance around the room, use your colors, play with your pencils, pretend you're 4 years old. And go forth with confidence, knowing that you are providing the world with creative action. And there's nothing that this world needs more than positive creative action, particularly from those of us that have been through a lot, been through years of this world. And so, go dance, go make art.
That's amazing. Well, thank you, Susan.
Welcome. Thank you so much for this series.
Oh, you're welcome.
I'm just thrilled.
It's amazing that you invited us into your studio. But Susanna Coffey here with us today, and with this exclusive invitation into her studio in this beautiful place. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Barb. This is really great.
And then we'll definitely come back